Based on a True Struggle is a weekly podcast hosted by Eric Diamond and David Miller. The series focuses on the struggles that we all face in our daily lives, be it personal or business. Each episode, Eric and David delve deep into their own struggles and provide insight on how they're using these struggles to their advantage as they try to redevelop the landscape of one community in Ohio. Hope you enjoy this week's episode.
This is Eric Diamond and David Miller bringing you the next episode of Based on a True Struggle. David, how are you?
I'm doing great as usual. Eric, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. Doing great. Feeling good.
Good, man.
So today we're going to talk about David Miller. Going to give us the background on D Mill and let us know about you and what your struggle has entailed. So I'm going to do the interview.
Oh, I couldn't have a better interviewer.
You ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's do this. So David, kind of give us a background on who you are, your early journey, and bring us up to today.
Okay. Born and raised in Ashtabula County. Father was a black man, born to a white mother. My mother and father got along for about 4 years of my early life before they separated and got a divorce. The primary reason behind their divorce was my father's, he drank a lot. So he worked on the railroad. When he came home, he was verbally abusive towards my mother, and then he became physically abusive towards her. And so when I was 4, my brother was about a year and a half, she made her exodus for fear of her life, I would imagine.
Really?
And then we were left with my father, who I admire for stepping up and taking custody of us. But that's when I started realizing, like, life was becoming somewhat like an island of loneliness. So my father was very protective of us. He took us everywhere he went. Within the next 4 years of my life, around the age of 8, my father lost his job on the railroad. And then that's when life became really hellish, because I experienced what could only be defined as extreme poverty. Father tried to find jobs. He tried to find work during that period. We're talking mid-'80s now. And he was unsuccessful. So naturally, he just reverted to what he can do best, which was sell drugs.
Wow.
And my home became what many would call a trap house. A lot of people would come to my house to purchase their drugs, and sometimes my dad would even let them use the house to use their drugs. So by the age of 10, I was exposed to the deep, dark world of drug activity. I knew the value of marijuana far before I understood anything about mathematics. I knew the value of cocaine before I could write an English letter. So my early education came from the streets.
Yep.
And this exposure to drugs and to the lifestyle at the time really was tragic. But throughout time, I guess it was a valuable lesson. So we move on to about another 2 years from that. I'm in junior high school, and my father begins using drugs. So for a while, he just sold them.
Gotcha.
He drank a lot, but he never used drugs. Occasional marijuana, but that was it. By the time I was in junior high school, he started doing the harder stuff. By the time I was a freshman in high school, he was, I don't like to use the term addicted, because I don't think my father was ever really addicted to drugs, and I'll explain why later.
Okay.
But he had a problem with them to the point where we lost our home. So I'm a freshman in high school, and I'm on the brink of homelessness.
Wow.
By my sophomore year, I was full-blown homeless, and that continued throughout my senior year pretty much.
Really?
Yeah. So that's my story of poverty in a nutshell. in the weeds of that story are moments of abuse. When my father was drunk or high, he would take a lot of this stuff that he put on my mother, he would take it out on me. There are a lot of nights of loneliness where my father would go out and make drug transactions, and it would just be me and my brother at home, and I would wait for him to come home, and it was like I'm waiting by the window. I remember those even now in my age, waiting for him, like in a state of despair, like lost, confused, not knowing what to do. My father to this day is my superhero. He always has been. I don't like painting a ugly picture of him.
Sure.
Because he had demons that he just couldn't fight off. But he was the greatest guy I knew, especially before consuming drugs or alcohol. And it still should be understood that he still, despite his demons, despite his addictions, despite his alcoholism, he was still able to step up and raise mildly successful young men. So, I mean, that can't be discounted.
No, not at all. That's pretty cool. Yeah. Deep, man.
Yeah.
So coming from that, catch us up on who David Miller is today.
So today, David Miller is, I can best describe myself as a social entrepreneur. I like to say a change agent. I like to imagine that my backstory has given me advantages that I don't see in a lot of boardrooms that I go into. And I have this ability to dream and this ability to visualize something that doesn't exist. And I couple that with this desire to make it exist. And so today I have started a nonprofit that only a few in my circle could even think was possible. And we're thriving. We're completing our second year. Yes, One Step Center. We took an old building in Conneaut that wasn't being used at the time, and we repurposed it for the purpose of being a place of refuge for teenage kids. And so we give them academic support. We feed them every time they come through our door a hot, healthy meal. We do life skills. We do recreation. So it's a 3-hour place of refuge for the kids a couple nights a week. And it's been supported by the youth in the community. And some of the organizations and some of the folks in Conneaut have really clinged to this idea. And I believe we've made tremendous impact.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
cool. And you did it with nothing.
No.
You always said you had, what is it? What's your phrase?
$0 and a dream. And then I kindly threw in like hundreds of haters and doubts.
And
right?
doubts.
Yeah.
So taking that early struggle that you had, how have you used that to go on and be the successful social entrepreneur that you are?
It's kind of like when you go through something that other people don't go through, and when you're going through the process, you're super conscientious of how it affects you. Like you're in tune with your emotions and you're in tune with yourself. You take a lot, you extract a lot from that situation. And I realized that a lot of people discount the things that they have.
Yep. And
I was in a place where, when I say extreme poverty, there were times where we didn't have food to eat. Yep. And there were times where our utilities weren't on. I don't remember many times when they were all off together, but there were certainly pockets of times when we didn't have gas for months at a time, or when the gas was on, we didn't have electricity, or we didn't have water, and we never had cable or a telephone. So those things that I went through, it triggered something inside of me that I used as maybe a survival mechanism. So I always knew, even at this age now, I'm a firm believer, you could put me anywhere, I'll survive. But the thing that I didn't get from that struggle that I'm learning to develop now is beyond survival. Like, what is it like to be successful?
Sure.
What is it like to be consistent and maintain this level of success? And so this is what I'm going through now. But the sheer standing on the cliff and just jump, like that's me because of my story. Like I have nothing to lose.
We're just playing with the house's money.
Just playing with house money. Not to mention, I should have been dead 3 times already. So the idea of me waking up and being fearful in any manner is ridiculous to me, because I faced death, and for some reason I survived. I was really, really sick around the age of 23. Doctors didn't know what was going on. I had 8 medical doctors at Cleveland University Hospital, all professionals in their field. They were testing me for everything from AIDS to cancer.
Jesus.
And they couldn't find what was wrong with me. I'd lost about 35 pounds and started losing my hair, and they thought that I had cancer, but they ran all the tests and they couldn't find anything. So one night I was laying in my hospital bed. They had reduced it to me needing a blood transfusion, because that was the only thing that was really going to save my life at the time. I needed like 3 bags of someone else's blood, and they wanted to do a bone marrow biopsy on me, and it was the night before my scheduled bone marrow biopsy procedure that a lady knocked on our door of my room, and she asked me if I believe in God, and she asked me if she could pray for me. The amazing thing about this story is nobody else in the room was awake.
Really?
And no one else remembers it. But I do. And she was dressed in all white, and I'm not trying to make it like she was an angel, but she came and she laid her hands on me, and she began to pray for me. And she prayed for me for what seemed like 10 minutes, but it was probably really 2. And I just remember hearing some of the things that she was saying. Like, God, you know that you gave David a purpose, and we want him to live to pursue that purpose, and he has seeds of greatness in him. And she began speaking life into me, maybe a person who was at the time dying. And when she got done praying for me, she said, tomorrow you're going to check out of here, and you're going to boggle the doctors. They're not going to figure out what's wrong with you, but all your tests are going to come back healthy, and you're going to be out of here. And she asked me if I believed it. And I just nodded my head, yeah, but I didn't believe her. And then she looked at me, she said, David, I need you to believe me. And I said, okay, I believe you. And at that moment, I believed her. And the next day, it happened. Like,
That's
seriously.
A crazy story.
The doctors came and they ran their test, and they saw my levels started to regulate. And then they were confused. So they met with each other, and they said, no, this can't be true. We got to run more tests. And they ran more tests, and then they said, well, you're good. Maybe the blood helped you. And so I checked out by noon that next day.
Dang.
True story.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So, I mean, this idea of going from not knowing if I'm going to live another week to waking up every morning, like you say, we're playing with house money. That gives me this advantage over most folks who are probably just programmed to wake up, do what they do. I just take a different perspective. Like,
Sure.
I'm blessed. When I get up in the morning, I have this like 10-second visualization I do before I get out of bed. And sometimes it's super, super focused, and sometimes it's not. But the idea is just to take 10 seconds and to find my place on earth is just to take 10 seconds and say, okay, I'm alive. I'm thankful. I'm going to have a great day. And my goal is to impact in a positive way the most people I possibly can, whether it's through a smile or something even bigger.
Cool. All right, we're going to take a break for our sponsors. We will be back. This is David and Eric with Based on a True Struggle. This episode of Based on a True Struggle is brought to you by Westport Capital Consulting. Westport Capital is an innovative consulting firm that helps communities rethink economic development by utilizing entrepreneurship. In addition to consulting, the team at Westport provides advocacy work and speaking engagements around some of the toughest economic development challenges facing communities today. Check them out at www.westportcapital.com. All right, we're back. David and Eric, Based on a True Struggle. David, feeling good?
Sir. Yes, sir. Still feeling good.
All right. So looking back and the struggles that you went through, what was the changing moment? Because you easily could have gone on a different path, and nobody would have even have noticed. So what was it that was the spark that changed?
That's a good question. So for 15 years, I was in the trenches of drugs. I watched people overdose on my couch. I watched people get murdered. I've watched people get sentenced to lengthy jail sentences and penitentiary sentences. And right around my freshman year, I remember I was going to Asheville High School. I had a pack of friends that I rolled with. None of them, everyone was heading toward a collision course with life. I mean, we were all going in the wrong direction. And every day after school, we would walk down Station Avenue past a place called the Samaritan House. It's a homeless shelter. And there'd be a gentleman outside a couple days a week who would stop us, young people, and have a conversation. And his name was Stephen Sargent. And Stephen just had this great energy about him. He's a young man. He had a pager. He was cool. He dressed cool. And the first few times I met him, I got to be honest, I thought that he was just a really smart drug dealer. And he would ask us, how's life going? What do we want to be? What are we doing to work towards that? He would ask us if we were hungry. And he would offer to take us to eat. And the first few times he'd offered to take us to eat, I didn't do it because the way I was raised, it was kind of like stranger danger. Like,
Gotcha.
I don't know this guy. And then as I began to develop a rapport with him and see that he was consistent and that he genuinely cared, because who else? He's in his late 20s. Who else is out here really having conversation with us freshmen? And he had a conversation with me one day, and I accepted his offer to go get McDonald's, and he bought me a Big Mac at McDonald's, and I was 15 years old, and that's the first time I ever tasted a Big Mac.
Really?
Yeah. And so from there, we began to have dialogue, and I began to spend more time with him, and I just began to see that he is, at his core, he's the most genuine person that I've ever met, and I wanted to be like him. And I always told myself, like, he gave me a different perspective on life. Like, there's more than this cube that I've been isolated to. And what I saw in him, I found out, was Jesus Christ.
Wow.
Right? So he was a minister, a reverend at his church, and he was very passionate about his religion. And so I'd say 90% of our conversations were based around that and what we could do to be better as a person in this earth, to be of service to humanity. And so I cling to that philosophy or that theology, and I gave my life to the Lord later on that year. I was still 15. And then I spent the majority of the next 5 years of my life pretty much studying under him, his mannerisms, his behavior, his philanthropic endeavors. And essentially, I just kind of morphed into this guy because he was doing it right.
Right.
He was selfless. And he still is. I don't like to use the past tense. He's still the same guy, just a selfless, genuine person. And he helped change my life. That was the period by which maybe I was the most impressionable. And he stepped in and filled this role of being a mentor that I never had. So he gave me inspiration and hope for the future. And so it was pretty easy to adjust once you saw there was a better way.
Right. Cool. David, what motivates you?
My family motivates me the most, probably. My wife, my children. My struggle motivates me. My struggle coming from where I came from, with the odds stacked against me. My finish line being, my starting line actually being so much further than everyone else's. That motivates me. It gives me this desire to work harder than everyone, to outwork everyone in the room, to think deeper, to visualize further. And so that's my motivation. People are my motivation. Yeah.
That's cool. What does success look like to you? How do you define success?
I define success as this ability to kind of do whatever you want to do, and being able to live free. And that to me is successful. Like, a successful person is someone who could do what they want to do and have positive impact on people. And it's not all about money or material. Like, a successful person to me is happy. They have joy. They have this. They're inspiring, right? So that's success to me. And for a long time, that's always been the way I visualize success, is someone who has this creative freedom to live life on their own accord, and they're not being governed by societal's norms. They don't have to go to work for someone else. They don't have to live a double life. Like, they could be free to wake up and be who they are. See, I didn't know that entrepreneurs existed other than the big time entrepreneurs
Sure.
that we all work for. I didn't know that was a way. And what I'm learning now is that success is really, it's a broad term, but for me, it's just this freedom to be who I am and really not care what people think.
That's cool. That's
Yeah.
really cool. Tell our listeners what an average day looks like for David Miller.
Okay, so I wake up, do my 10-second visualization, take my daughter to school every morning, pack her lunch. Like, that hour or two with her in the morning is like, it's amazing. We focus on her homework, or we plan out her day. I have these affirmations that I ask her every morning before we go to school, every morning, never missed. And I ask her what's her goals for the day. And she always tells me to be a leader, listen to my teacher, to help others, and to be strong,
That's cool.
right? And so that's her goals for the day. And so after I drop her off, my day begins. Sometimes I'm doing things with the Neo Fund,
Yep.
and sometimes I'm trying to book gigs for DMG, the David Miller Group. And a lot of times I'm working with the One Step Center. So I'm out in communities between Ashtabula and Conneaut, trying to wear different hats. And depending on what hat I'm wearing, I'm grinding, man.
Sure.
It's a grind. Every day is a grind. Like, and the really cool thing about my life is, I know people sit back and they say, well, earlier people were like, why don't you just get a job? And, there's different ways to support your family. Just get a job, right? And I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm a crummy employee. Like, if only you knew that I know once I get hired, there's no way I'm going to last more than 2 years at this place, right? There has to be something better. And so I got to say this. I could not be the person I am today if it weren't for my wife. And a lot of people say that, but I genuinely mean it, because my wife she makes good money. She's been able to give me the ability to pursue my dreams. And if it wasn't for that, like, our household would have collapsed. There'd be nothing to eat. I'd be revisiting the struggle, right? And so an average day for me is just that. It's just a different adventure. I never really know what it's going to be, which is great.
I hear you.
It's a grind, though, and I love it. And I wouldn't change it for anything, man.
That's cool. What do you do for fun?
Well, I would say spend time with my family, but that's not always fun. Kids can stress you out sometimes. I do enjoy my family, and I do find it to be fun. But I play golf. I think golf is something that I really enjoy. It really takes my mind to another place. And other than that, I love basketball. So I'm still like physically fit, I guess, for my age. And so my fun consists of doing physical activities, spending time outside, and dreaming. Like, I really enjoy dreaming. I enjoy getting a old notebook and just writing down what my next 10 years is going to look like. To me, that's fun.
Yeah.
And then I wake up every day trying to connect those pieces.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
What's one thing that I haven't asked you that you wish people did know about you?
Okay. Well, the question I wish people would ask me more often is, how much money do you need? As I visualize them with a checkbook and this really nice pen ready to stroke out any amount I put on there. But I guess that's the nonprofit side of me.
Sure.
The answer to your question would be, how is it that you have been able to come out of that? Because what you've described is, maybe uncommon, but in today's society, it's probably more and more common. So what is it about you that has allowed you the ability to emerge from this darkness? And my answer to that would simply be probably my faith.
Really?
My faith has helped me tremendously. If I would not have believed in God and what God has been able to do for me, I can assure you I wouldn't be here today, and I wouldn't be doing this interview. Mind you, when Stephen stopped me, I was around 4 or 5, maybe 9 different guys.
Wow.
All the time. When I look back over my life, I was a leader. I was point guard, quarterback. That's the only positions I played. And so naturally, I just had this ability to rally the team and,
Sure.
and get them to listen to me. And so when I'm working on the streets with these guys, they're all involved in different things, gangs, drugs. I've never been in a fight in my life, right? So I just didn't fit in.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people would say, you just don't fit in. And I think that's what Stephen saw in me. He saw this kid who was lost and trying to fit in but didn't. And I guess where I'm going with this is those guys are not here today.
Wow.
You know, a couple of them are dead. A couple of them are serving long prison sentences. And I can't help but think if I would have stayed on that path, I wouldn't be here either.
Sure. That's crazy.
Yeah.
David, I really appreciate your honesty and your sincerity, and I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you too, man. This is a great thing that we got going on, and I'm glad to give our subscribers and our listeners a peek behind the curtain of what is David Miller.
It's been truly fascinating. All right, that's it for today. This is Eric and David, based on a true struggle. Check us out on Facebook. Subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. I think we're on all the platforms now. And if you have any questions or want to send us a comment, you can always email us at admin@trustruggle.com.
And the website should be launching soon.
Sweet. Looking forward to it.
And that is www.trustruggle.com, and it's spelled TRUSTRGGLE.com.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks again to our sponsors. And until next time, peace.
Peace.
Based on a True Struggle is a production of Ideation Corporation Unlimited. This episode was produced by Eric Diamond. Site design by David Miller. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, or anywhere you get great podcasts. Our theme song is Pushed Through by Dreamlife. Follow us on Facebook or check out our website at www.trustruggle.com. That's www.trustruggle.com. You can email us at info@trustruggle.com. Feel free to leave us a message on our listener line at 440-941-8443. If you like what we are doing, give us a rating on iTunes and tell all your friends about us. Thanks for listening, and until next week, peace.